Yung speaker.
Balik pa rin naman. Napakala.
Yung speaker,
Speaker yan.
naririnig. Hindi. Ito kasi sa laptop. Oo, hindi po like
Wait lang, ma'am. Ayusin lang natin yung audio. Sige lang.
ito yung mic mo. Ito yung green.
Hello, check, test. Hello, mic test, test. Doon ka. Hello.
Karapatan ng kapwa
Magbubukas ng ating programa ngayong hapon. Bolivarian Venezuela Friendship Association and coordinator for the International League of People Struggles Commission 1, the cause of national liberation and social.
Thank you so much. Magandang hapon po sa ating lahat. And I'm deeply honored to be here with you. Kanina nung na-meet ko yung mga kasama natin ngayon sa NSF, napakilala din ako sa mga kaibigan natin mula sa Palestine. And how about how we feel? Can we also talk about that? Never before have I been so mindful and sensitive of the context and situation of communication as I have been in the past several occasions in which I have been tasked to talk about the historical context of the Palestinian struggle for national liberation. I came upon this social issue 30 years ago when the Oslo Accords was the cause in the world affairs. In the world affairs section of newspapers and broadcast channels and school debates. kayong mga oligarchs, kayong makapangyarihan sa Europa na nakikipagsabwatan sa mga makapangyarihan din sa Britain. No? Nung panahon na to, Great Britain yung superpower, hindi pa yung Amerika. No? So si George Fritzl, isang mayaman, so siyang bahagi ng oligarkiya, at nililigawan niya yung British oligarchy. Bigyan niyo naman ako ng lugar, no, na kung saan pwedeng magtayo ng Jewish state, no? Pinagpilian nila yung Uganda ba, Argentina ba, o sa Palestine. Eventually, maitatayo ito sa Palestine at meron yung kasaysayan. Ay, so yun yung 1897. Yung Zionist Jews, na basically, ito na yung naging dominant, no, doon sa kung paano pinapatakbo yung Israeli state. No, this belief that the whole of Palestine is the promised land. At ito ay walang iba kundi ang Israel. No? At kailangan ay masakop nilang lahat yon. No? At maitayo yung sinasabing Jewish state of Israel in Palestine. No? Yun yung mahalaga. No? Hindi nagtatapos doon sa Jewish state of Israel. Pero sila ay nagtayo ng bansa at nagtayo ng estado sa isang bansa na hindi naman sa kanila. No? Sa isang lupain na hindi naman sa kanila. So, yung mga Zionists na ito who identified themselves with Judaism, with the Jews, were rejected by a vast majority of the Jews, and they were actually a minority since in the middle of the 1960s. No? Magiging makapangyarihan na lang sila at yung consolidation nila ay makakamit na lamang nila sa pagtatapos ng 1960s. No? Ngayon, noong 1917, another flashpoint, 1917 to 1922, yung Ottoman Empire was then defeated by the European powers after World War I. Okay? So, Palestine then becomes a British mandate. Pupunta na siya sa mga British. Tapos, yung Balfour Declaration, sinasabi ng Balfour Declaration, the British promises Zionists a national home for Jews in Palestine. So, ito yung sinasabi ko na hindi naman nagsimula yung Palestinian problem in 1948 or 1947, no? The armistice or the peace pact that ended World War I in 1918 paved the way for the creation of the League of Nations. Ito yung United Nations na ngayon, no? So the League controlled the mandates, no? Ano yung mandates? Ito po yung sikreto nilang paghahati-hati ng mga bansa, no? Yung Sykes-Picot Agreement between the French and the British, they carved up the Arab region. At pinaghati-hatian nila kung sino sa kanila yung magkakaroon ng control doon. So, basically, the League of Nations controlled the mandate of the assignment of the colonies of the defeated powers of Austria, Germany, and the Ottoman Empire to the Allies. Yun yung mga European tsaka yung US. So, during peacetime, quote-unquote, the League took a look at Palestine and decided it was not ready for independence. Gano'n naman yung colonialism, di ba? Sila yung nagdidikta kung handa ka na o hindi. No? And that Palestine became a mandate of Great Britain was good news for the Zionists. So Great Britain's Balfour Declaration of November 1917 fully supported the formation of a Jewish state in Palestine, which is now the apartheid state of Israel. So the history of genocide in Palestine cannot begin with just 1948. Kailangan matrace ito mula pa doon sa, 1917, no? O even way before that, no? Yung mga colonial adventures, no? ng Vatican, no? And so on and so forth. So anyway, the agreements and borders imposed by the Treaty of Versailles
which partitioned the Middle East as colonies of the Allied forces, had set the stage for a turbulent century for the Arab people. To say that Palestine is in a state of war or conflict or in conflict with Israel, narinig natin yan, di ba? Israel-Hamas conflict, no? Israel-Palestine conflict. To say that this is conflict is to obscure the fact that it has been occupied. The occupation of Palestine by Israel officially since 1948 is a state of war that breeds resistance. And without that context, we will not understand what happened on October 7. So the terrorist tagging of Palestinians, the racism against the Arab people, and the demonization of Islam are crucial to maintaining the architecture of Israeli settler colonial state. Ito yung mga dayuhang na nanatili doon sa mga sinakop nila. Yung mga dayuhan na nanakop sa atin, hindi sila naging settlers, kundi nag-create sila ng neo-colony sa atin. Wala dito, wala yung mga Amerikano, pero meron pa rin silang control sa kultura, sa ekonomiya, at sa politika. Ganun yung mode of the Nakba, or the Day of Catastrophe. Thousands of Palestinians were massacred and displaced as over 500 villages were destroyed. Yung record dito, 750,000 people at least, no, were killed and displaced. So the Nakba has never stopped. It still is happening. And unbeknownst to many, Israel is a nuclear armed state that receives 3.8 billion yearly grants from the US government. Blockaded on all sides by the same military force, Palestinians are fighting against a colossal occupier. Okay. So then, a little backtrack ulit, 1947, which was a crucial year, the United Nations proposes to partition Palestine into a Jewish state and an Arab state, which paved the way for 1948. So Palestinians rejected this, of course, because it believed them deprived of access to natural resources and historical cities, such as Jerusalem. Sinabi ng United Nations. So ibig sabihin, even United Nations was complicit doon sa occupation ng Palestine. So basically, Palestinians have been resisting. Their homes were being illegally seized and appropriated by Zionist settlers. 800,000 of them were forced to leave their homeland during the Nakba. And they, when they were occupied, they were exploited. Their labor was exploited, and as well as their land. So they worked for the settlers. Okay, but then there was also ethnic cleansing. So it was a combination, right? It was a combination of extermination and exploitation. And there was also segregation. And on the other side, Israel, there was military training of Israeli citizens from when they are children. So that's something that is not very much known to the public, right? That there's actually a systematic training, military and ideological, among Israeli citizens. And then there was also a systematic mass exodus to Palestine of Europeans from different parts of the world during this period. And then came 1967, when Israel goes to war with Egypt and annexes Gaza and the West Bank. So this commences the brutal military occupation. So 48 and then 67. Why? Because it got tired of the resistance of the Palestinians and their allies within the Arab region, because they never stopped fighting. So 1967, Israeli decided, okay, we're going to launch this really big war, against these against the Arab people. So by 1987 and 1989, okay, the first Intifada. Of course, during this time, hindi pa nila alam na may second Intifada, right? So the Intifada took place at the time. It is a sustained series of protests and armed uprising carried out by Palestinians to liberate Palestine from settler colonialism, the military occupation of the state of Israel, officialized and legitimized by Western imperialist powers and the United Nations beginning in 1948. So the Intifada, or the justified revolt for national liberation, that's what Intifada means, justified resistance. This forced the West and other social actors of the occupation, such as the State of Israel, to come together and suppress the Intifada. Okay. So the Madrid Conference of 1991, wala pa kayo, hindi pa kayo pinapanganak yung mga nandito sa harap, was carried out for this purpose, right? Para matapos na yung Intifada. Okay. So by 1993, magsisimula na yung Oslo Accords. Bakit ganito to? Ayan. So what was the plan? So yung PLO was a combination of different Palestinian resistance organizations. They formed a broad united front, and this is the PLO led by Yasser Arafat. Okay, so this was the Palestinian Liberation Organization, PLO. So basically, it recognized Israel. Okay, what was the plan of the Oslo Accords? Sa Oslo siya ginawa. So the territory would gradually be transferred to Palestinian Authority, for which it shall assume security and responsibilities. But this strategy would be doomed. The goals, as far as Palestinians were concerned, was an independent state centered around Jerusalem, part of Israeli occupation. Yun yung problema, Kasi hinati nga. Anong sabi ng Israel? Okay, ano yung goals naman nung nasa kabilang table? Sabi ng Israel, to be determined. So it was not exactly a cooperative force, even during the Oslo Accords or the so-called peace talks. Okay, so Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin was assassinated, yung galing sa Israel, by the Zionists on November 4, 1995, and his successor Shimon Peres, like Rabin, were unable to commit to any kind of aspirational goal, much less to an agreement. And if you actually read the Oslo Accord, it's on the net, and if you type Control F and type Palestinian state or state of Palestine, it does not exist anywhere in the Oslo papers. So there was actually, even the Oslo Accord did not have or doesn't dedicate a concept of a Palestinian state. And that should be made clear, because now people are talking about the two-state solution as an alternative. When in fact, historically, later I will talk about it, but it was not, even the Oslo Accords doesn't have that alternative or solution for the problem of occupation. It would take 6 years for Israel to consider any concept of statehood. for Palestine. But because the United States openly started a global and ideological campaign for the so-called two-state solution, meaning the two-state solution is not an indigenous concept coming from the Palestinians or the other
What
side,
is the
the
win?
Israeli state. It's a
What are the win?
solution
Is
that
that
was
just
offered
chicken?
by the United States. So as that solution was being dangled, the solution of Western imperialism,
Half a chicken, what else?
1996, habang nag-Oslo Accord, the United
Magkano half
States
chicken?
came out with a terror list. You're familiar with
600
the
ba?
terror list, our own ATL, anti-terror law, terrorist designation, right?
Oo.
You're all familiar with that. No? May origins yun.
Where do
At
you
yung
want?
origins niya ay nandun sa Oslo Accords. No? It has its origins to the Intifada, the first Intifada. So it was actually, there was the first piece of legislation
Yeah, they only have a rabbit salad.
relating to the
And then
terror
isang
list was
salad.
called ADEPA. Anti-Terrorism
Apo,
and Effective Death
half-roasted. Anong
Penalty
mga
Act
salad
of
niya?
1996. And
Go
this
ahead.
is
Just
where
order salad
this
kami.
list of
Let's
foreign
introduce.
terrorist organizations designated by the Treasury Department and the State Department of the United States was institutionalized into U.S. criminal law. And basically, it made it illegal to engage in what was labeled material support for terrorist organizations in Palestine and in the Arab region. No? So habang nagpa-peace talks, meron silang attacks on civilians. You see that, right? So parang ayaw nila na, tama na yan rebellion. No? Pero we will curtail your rights. We will accuse you as terrorists. So look at that architecture, no, of imperialist state power. So okay, so and once again, the justification that was provided for the creation of the terror list was that allowing these organizations to receive material support would undermine the Middle East peace process. No? So if you want to read more about it, about this, you can refer to an interview between Charlotte Cates and Max Allen, which they really discuss this in depth. I will forward it to the organizers on the origins of the terror list. So basically, yung terrorist tagging, no, ay na-practice na nila na-rehearse nila sa Palestine, no? Yung terrorist tagging dito sa Pilipinas in the same way that yung torture and yung killings ng mga labeled terrorists, no? Ang pinagpraktisan ng US imperialist state yung Pilipinas, right? When they killed off the hooks, right, with Magsaysay and CIA agent Edward Lansdale, for which Magsaysay became president and the champion of democracy because they were successful in killing off the anti-imperialist army back then, no, the Hook, Balahap. And then they did the same methods of torture and Saywar, no, sa mga citizens when they went to Indonesia. You remember the Jakarta method, this terrible, terrible mass killings of Indonesians, labeling them as communists, as terrorists, and then they brought it to Vietnam, thinking that they will win, but they were defeated, right? And if you recall, 1979, is that right, Ma'am Benen? Vietnam War, 75, right? It was also a time I know of many activists who were, who are more advanced in both experience and age, who came to consciousness during that period. Tama ba? Right? And the goal was to really expose and oppose the war, the imperialist war in Vietnam. And the Vietnamese did not only won that war militarily, but also they won that war ideologically because the whole world were basically not only opposing but calling US imperialist war as an abomination. That's why I believe strongly that something like that can be done, no? Especially now that we are witnessing a genocide. No? So that was the legislation, the ADEPA. I think it's important to note that as part of that history, which has now been globalized, to demonize people who are fighting for national liberation, right? And apart from that, in this particular interview, Kate of the Samidun Prisoner Network prisoners of Palestine. Sinasabi rin niya na ang kasabay pa nun ay yung NGOization, yung pagtatayo ng maraming NGOs, no, sa Palestine, no, at sa iba pang bahagi ng mundo kung saan merong nakikibaka para sa pambansang paglaya. And this is to show that with funding, no, with funding, pwedeng malipat yung attention ng mga tao sa kanilang grassroots organizing for national liberation. For example, in the Philippines, no, merong mga organs of political power in the countryside consisting of peasants, and they want to free themselves by all means necessary, just like the people in Palestine, right? So, ang ginawa ng NGOization ay sinabi nila na tapos na yung struggle for national liberation. What you can do now is just really focus on building civil society, and we shall fund it, right? So it's the building of this so-called civil society, and they sinasabi na nila forget about national liberation. Why? Because it's terrorist. Kasi nga may terrorist listing din. Tapos, nagpe-peace talks din sila. But the peace talks, it's not the same as the peace talks here in the Philippines. Diba? Yung peace talks natin sa Pilipinas, it's between two governments, no? The National Democratic Front representing the Communist Party of the Philippines and the Philippine government. Meron silang tax, meron silang territories, di ba? So, state sila. Ang problema dun sa peace process sa Palestine, it's a peace process between occupier and occupied. So, sabi nga ng kanilang revolutionary, a revolutionary Palestinian who was killed, Ghazan Kanafani, it's like a conversation between the neck and the sword, right? Kasi, how can you negotiate with an occupier, no? So, anyway, that's it. And then 2000 to 2005, another wave of peace process, no? Ang aim naman nito, masettle siya sa Camp David Summit between the Palestinian Authority and Israel. So naitayo na nila yung Palestinian Authority, naglaho na yung PLO, naglaho na yung mga mass organizations and movements for national liberation. No? Either they were killed, they've been labeled terrorists, so nasa diaspora na sila, or they went underground. But despite the very limited sovereignty provided by the accord to the Palestinians, Israel refuses to accept these conditions. So this ignites the second intifada. So lumitaw na naman sila. No? Kasi nakita nila bakit ba ganyan yan, no? So second intifada. So the Palestinians, along with their allies in the Arab region, have always framed the Palestinian problem as one of settler colonialism and occupation. And the solution, therefore, is an end to the apartheid state of Israel and its occupation of Palestine. So that was very clear, no, nung yugto na yan. 2008 to 2014, more wars happened in Gaza, and they can share more, no, on this, wherein Israel does not discriminate between combatants and non-combatants, resulting in the death of thousands of Palestinian children. And there were no appropriate sanctions demanded by the international community. So this is really a sad part, embarrassing part of our shared history. 2018 to 2019, there was a peaceful Palestinian demonstration. It's called the March of Return across the Gaza border to express the right to return to their land, Palestinians. And hundreds were killed and many more were injured in this non-violent action. So those who were on the Gaza border were targeted by the Israeli Defense Force, or IOF. They were being shot, no, dun sa kanilang tuhod or sa kanilang femur. No? So makita nyo, may mga bumabalik pa na naka-wheelchair. So that's such a symbol, di ba? Yung nasa wheelchair, that's a symbol of so they were shot, they were, many of them killed. Those who were not shot and those who were not killed were captured and are now political prisoners, no, sa Israel. So that's how terrible it was, no, for them. And then ito na yung 2023, no? An armed Palestinian resistance launches an attack against Israel amidst worsening conditions in Gaza and the West Bank on October 7, 2023. It's called the Operation Al-Aqsa Flood. So Israel retaliates. Of course, you know this, no? Bombing Gaza, it orders 1 million Palestinians, no? Lumikas na kayo, and so on and so forth. You're quite familiar with this history, right? Okay. So ngayon, ang sinasabi sa atin ay ano yan Hamas lang yan. It's Hamas versus the Israeli. But actually, it's not just. Kamis here is saying that he's from Gaza. It's not just the Hamas. There were in fact at least 10 armed organizations who were part of the Al-Aqsa Flood. So it was a broad united front against occupation and for national liberation. So dito, ilang ba? Mga 5 lang yung nandito ko, but there are actually 10. So, but of course, Hamas remains to be a powerful force in Gaza, and in fact, it was elected in 2006 to the dismay of the Palestinian Authority. Okay, so let's talk about Hamas. It's the offshoot of Egypt's Muslim Brotherhood. In 1987, it was formed in 1897, and basically, ang goal niya is to liberate Palestine and oppose the 1993 Oslo Accord, saying Israel used the deal to expand illegal settlements on territories occupied in 1967, and they were not wrong about this. This is a fact. In 2006, the group decided to participate in elections in Gaza, and it won. But the transfer of power was not peaceful, as Fatah, the party that dominates the Palestinian Authority, tried to oust them from the Gaza Strip. So, ayan. Let's talk about October 7. So, October 7, Palestinian guerrilla army collapsed the mighty Israeli army. That's what took place. And what was their goal? They wanted Israeli prisoners of war, POWs, were taken into Gaza, and they meant to swap them for Palestinians prisoner of war. And there were over 4,000, but they say, there were 6,000. So let's say 6,000 of Palestinian prisoners. So gusto nilang swap. Why? Because it was done in the past. For one Israeli soldier, they were able to swap 1,000 POWs, prisoners of war. Napalaya na sana nila lahat ng POWs na nasa Israel because of that. But amid defeat, Israel did not care about even their own hostages, right? They could have freed all of them, Yung mga POWs na nasa Israel, na mga Palestinians, because of the Al-Aqsa flood. But Israel, no. Ang naging sagot kasi nila, we don't want exchange of POWs. We don't care about our POWs. We will bombard you. So, punta na kayo doon, umalis na kayo, 1 million kayong lumikas kasi bobombahin na namin kayo. So, on October 16, the Palestinian resistance released a video saying they will free foreigners without preconditions. Okay. And then, October 17, alam nyo na yung nangyari, di ba? Israel bombed 4 hospitals. Yung isa, yung talagang binomba yung isang hospital. But actually, a day before that, may panawagan yung mga armed Palestinian resistance. Na ang most powerful of which would be Hamas. And they were, they released a communique. But whatever happened to that communique, may narinig ba tayo? Wala, di ba? Hindi yan ni-report ng CNN. Ang ni-report lang yung 2 days ago, yung nag-release yung Hamas ng communique about a pause, right? A humanitarian pause that was negotiated by Qatar, diba? Pero actually, hindi yun yung una nilang communique. So what is clear, by October 18, nung nakita natin na, oh my God, kaya nilang mambomba ng hospital, was that Israel's interest is to maintain its status as an empire and as a military base. Ayun lang. Wala siya talagang interest na ma-rescue even yung mga POWs, no? Na nasa kamay ng mga Palestinian resistors. And it is actually so it fits well with the Zionist motto, with the Zionist principle na pinapag-ulit-ulit ng kanilang mga founding fathers, a drop of civilization in a sea of barbarism. So the sea of barbarism would be the whole of Palestine, if not the Arab region, right? And we are here to provide civilization. But what is actually happening right now is a genocide. So I will end there. If you have any comments, I will be happy to learn more from you later. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Prof. Raimundo, for enlightening us on the socio-historical roots of the Palestine in Israel war. I would like to add emphasis to Prof. Raimundo's point earlier. Terrorist tagging was already practiced on Palestine, only to be replicated in the Philippines. The fight of Palestinians is not far from the fight of the Philippines against US imperialism. You may already have comments or questions from Prof. Raimundo's presentation. Kindly reserve them for the open
of our kababayans have accepted a mission to provide medical support to the Gaza community when war between Palestine and Israel broke out.
A licensed nurse and midwife, Darwin de la Cruz Diaz is a native of Pangasinan, Philippines. He holds a degree in nursing from Benguet State University. He pursued for further education in Philippine Colleges of Health Science, St. Paul University, Philippines, University of La Salette, and Lyceum Northwestern University. Darwin joined Doctors Without Borders, or MSF, in 2014, where he first worked as a midwife supervisor in South Sudan. Since his first mission, he has returned to South Sudan 3 times. Through MSF, he has also worked in Sudan, Bangladesh, and Pakistan. Darwin's most recent assignment was in Gaza, where he was working as a medical coordinator since 2021.
Joining Mr. Darwin Diaz is Mr. Regidor Esguerra, who is a registered nurse as well, a native of General Santos City, in the Philippines. Mr. Regidor worked as a nurse in St. Elizabeth Hospital and Southern Philippines Medical Center before joining the International Committee of the Red Cross Philippines as a medical field officer in 2004. Mr. Regidor joined Doctors Without Borders, or the MSF, in 2008, working until 2014 as a nurse in Sudan, Zambia, South Sudan, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Somalia, in the Philippines, and Bulgaria. Since 2015, Sir Regidor has been working as a project coordinator and project medical referent for Doctors Without Borders projects in places such as Pakistan, Bosnia, Poland, the Philippines, and the occupied Palestinian territories. It was in 2018 when Mr. Rahidor first worked in Gaza, where he was part of a team that provided reconstructive surgery for war-wounded population during the Great March of Return, or the GMR. And then has been assigned to Gaza 5 times. So let us give a hand to our MSF volunteers.
Hello, magandang hapon. Assalamualaikum. Okay. So I guess it was a really long introduction. Quite unusual. First of all, I would like to thank you for the opportunity that was given to Doctors Without Borders or Medicine Sans Frontier to be part of this forum and also to speak about our experience in Gaza. So yeah, I mean, I just need to take the opportunity to have a brief introductions of our organizations. Medicine Sans Frontier is a French word for Doctors Without Borders. So we are emergency medical humanitarian organizations that provide assistance and support to people affected by armed conflict, natural disasters, epidemics, regardless or irrespective of race, religion, orientations, and affiliations. So just is more like this is the nutshell of MSF. So I will take you back a bit, a brief history of why we are in occupied Palestinian territories. So we are there since 1989. So we're mostly operating in the West Bank, which is more providing support for the displacement of the Palestinian population. We are providing directly mental health support in Hebron. So MSF is not me as we are discussing with Aaron before. When it comes to MSF, in times of this crisis, we are one MSF. But just to give you a brief kind of not divisions, but orientations of operational sections we call. So we have 5 operational sections that is operating globally. So we have MSF Belgium, which is the headquarters in Brussels, which is Darwin is belong to. Then we have MSF Holland. We have MSF France, that is have a project and activity in the Philippines. We have MSF Spain, which recently had an interventions last year in after the aftermath of Odette in Dinagat Island, and we have the MSF Switzerland. So these are the 5 operational sections, and in occupied Palestinian territory, which means West Bank and Gaza, we have a project in Hebron, Jenin, Gaza Strip. So in Gaza Strip, we are 3 operational sections operating. So 3 MSF. So Darwin belongs to the big brother. So I'm belongs to MSF Spain, which is more a small operational sections, but quite active in the occupied Palestinian territories. And also there's the MSF France. So what we are doing in Gaza is we are providing support directly for the Palestinian populations, which means that we have activity in surgery, trauma management, reconstructive surgery. Then I guess Darwin will kind of introduce more on the what are the specifics and details of the medical activities in Gaza. So MSF is the adherence to the principles of independence, neutrality, impartiality, and the most important part for us is also the proximity to the people that we are trying to help. So that's why we are here right now, because one of the core principles that we are following is the French word témoignage, which means in English, we need to speak up on what we see, what we experience. So that's why we take this opportunity to be here. So I came in Gaza in 2018 as part of the emergency team that was selected to support our big brother, which is Embassy of France, during that period, because they asked for SOS or help for us to address the influx of wounded caused by the Great March of Return. So I was coming with three surgeons, orthopedic surgeons, vascular surgeons, plastic surgeons. So we are there because every Friday there's this Great March of Return. That every Friday hospitals are receiving thousands of people wounded, which particular injuries on the lower limb. So what we see, I'm not an expert, but what I hear from my technical colleague, particularly the orthopedic surgeons, most of the cases that we see, according to the classification of fractures, we are seeing Gustilo 3, A, B, and C. So this is really a serious lower limb injury that exposes the bone, taking out massive chunks of soft tissue. Then worse is not exposed bone, but also fragments, broken bones with a gap of more than 12 centimeter and higher. So that's why MSF Belgium during that time prompted to start a program for a reconstructive surgery specific on lower limb. And what I see during that period, it's not about how fast we did the surgery also, but one of the things that we clearly identified is the follow-up of this case. So GMR is a different context, but we will try to walk you through on what is happening in Gaza once Darwin's takeover. So for me now it's the when I have been in 5 rotations in Gaza since 2018, mostly working in the reconstructive program in the north of Gaza, which is in Al Auda Hospital. As you heard 2 days ago, our hospital that we supported were bombed, and there's 3 of our doctors were killed instantly. So it's really I can say such news that we received from our side here in the Philippines, and we quite kind of helped us to ensure that only what we can do from our end is just to send condolences for our staff. So when I arrived in Gaza, so it took me 3 years before I decided to come back. So actually, October 7 happens, the escalation. I arrived on October 2. So I only have 5 days to be in the position as a project coordinator. Then suddenly I need to take over big responsibilities as the evacuation team leader for the 22 international staff for for Doctors Without Borders. So as I see I take note of speaking because there are different wars, I can say escalations that happens in Gaza before. Take note of the 2008, which is the Operation Castle, that more than 6,400 Palestinians were killed also, and 300 Israeli soldiers were also killed. So 2012 followed 2014, and immediately jumping in 2023. But from time to time, you will be hearing a news on global news like BBC, Al Jazeera, that there's this term they call escalation. So there are period of escalations between 2014 and 2023, which me and Darwin were able to experience. This is the sending of rockets towards the Israeli territories, and afterwards it will be met by a constant bombardment of the Israeli Air Force that sometimes lasted for 48 hours. And I guess the longest one that was the team that was experienced is May in 2021 that lasted for 11 days. So now what has happening in Gaza is not escalations anymore. It's a war. So the declaration of war. So for me as a project coordinator, I'm not quite involved in a medical programming in details, but one of the primary and major um, responsibilities before we engage in any medical activities is the security and safety of our staff. So this is more responsibility that was given to me as a project coordinator and a security responsible at the same time. So with this kind of conflict, it's really challenging to ensure the safety of our team, which means teams I'm referring to international staff and also national staff. So there's this thing that I think it's a comment that I would like to share also, that why MSF left Gaza, the international staff. Just to address this one, we didn't left. Because for us, as a security responsible, I will bring this, I will give you a rationale on based on the security perspective. So for us, when we say and when we decided that the place is not safe anymore for our team to operate, and the impact of our interventions is really compromised, then we need to evacuate. We call it the security evacuations because there's no more security guarantees for us. We don't wait for this type of security situations that you don't have options to take. And the more you stay, the more that you will leave no options to evacuate. So for MSF, we are managing security in a more conservative manner. We don't wait that there's the war or what you see right now in Gaza City and north of Gaza. It's impossible now to organize an evacuation, and it's putting at risk our staff. But at the same time, during that period, we are also providing support for different hospitals that our team is working. I'm referring the team, mostly our national staff colleague, to continue to work inside Al Shifa, inside Al Auda Hospital, at one point also in Indonesian Hospital. So providing support in terms of supplies, communications also on what will be the actions that will be taken. So for us, going out 22 international staff out of Gaza, it doesn't mean that there's no one is waiting for us in the border of Egypt. We already have 14 international staff who came with a really profile that is designed for the interventions. Mostly what we are doing right now in the south of Gaza, because going in Al Shifa in Gaza City as well as in the north, it's really an insecure place. So we decided for the time being, based on our security guarantees, that we can operate in the south of Gaza. We are operating in Nasser Hospital. So the primary objective of the support will be, how can I say it, replacing the medical personnel, because they've been subjected for almost 6 weeks of constant taking care of the influx of wounded in their respective hospital. So that is the primary goal. Then we have some objectives that we need also to address the internally displaced person that is moving in the south. So by providing mobile clinics as well as addressing the issues of water and also facilitating the issues of food with other relevant UN agencies or other organizations. So just to end this one, because Darwin will be speaking more on the medical side. So personally, I experienced as an evacuation team leader, it's not a quite straightforward that we leave the house and we go to Rafah. That is not the reality that we experience during the evacuations. So first, when we experience the constant bombardment on the fourth day, that we are talking to our Palestinian colleagues here that the Al-Abbas mosques were bombed. It's just less than 100 meters from our guest houses. So you can feel the tremors, you can feel the shockwave, destructions of all our windows, glass windows. That prompted our security responsible to evacuate to the UNDP compound, which is also in Gaza City. We have more a basement that house also not only international organizations, but as well as the UN agency staff, particularly Palestinian. So spending 3 nights there, we received a message from Israeli Defense Force that all of the people that is living, including organizations, international staff, from the north of Wadi Gaza needs to move south. And there's only a deadline of 24 hours to leave. So it means that thousands, hundreds of thousands of people need to decide to leave. So that's the time that I took over as an evacuation team leader, that we moved from the Gaza City going to Khan Yunis, which is in one of the UNRWA compound, where also the people coming from the Gaza City and north of Gaza came there. So as far as I remember, Darwin, correct me if I'm wrong, when we arrived, we are like 400 people in the center. We sleep for at least 5 hours because we did not have enough sleep during the time. Then when we wake up, we see a lot of people. It's like a market. It's already 10,000 people in just a matter of 5 hours. So we stayed there for two days and 2 nights, hoping that we will be evacuated to Rafah, but we end up no news for us to cross. So when we left KYTC, this is in Khan Yunis, there are already 25,000 people. So just to end this one, after Khan Yunis, we go to another UN compound in Rafah, where we spent two weeks without proper shelter. We are trying to find food for our team. Then finally, in 1st of November, we received the news in an open source that we need to evacuate to another location. So the pictures that you're seeing, it's this is in Khan Yunis. So it's difficult to leave Gaza in the first place, in my perspective, because I've been there. I know most of the stuff that working with MSF, particularly in MSF Belgium, it's really difficult. But since that I was given a responsibility as an evacuation team leader, I need to make sure that the safety and security of our team that will be carried out in going out of Gaza Strip through Egypt. So yeah, I guess that is what I can share, and Darwin will be continuing with the medical part of our activities and experience.
Magandang hapon po sa ating lahat. Assalamualaikum. Ako po si Darwin, the medical coordinator of MSF in Gaza, considered as the biggest outer prison in the world. Yeah, before the war, the situation in Gaza, the humanitarian need, medical needs, most of the medical facilities, both primary healthcare centers and hospitals, they are run by UNRWA. So UNRWA is the United Nations Relief and Work for Palestinian Refugees in the Near East. So sila po ang namamahala. So ibig sabihin that even before war, nag-struggle na po ang Ministry of Health ng Gaza, how they sustain their activities, their medical needs. Most of the time, they are relying on international organizations for donations. And yeah, ang sitwasyon din po doon is that there's no specialized treatment. Example, cancer, they don't have even diagnostics procedures, diagnostic machines. Israel imposed the dual purpose use policy since 2005, whereby yung mga equipments na merong parts that can be used to manufacture weapons like MRI, for example, X-ray, talagang hinihigpitan ang pagpasok sa Gaza. Last year, for example, we only have one functioning MRI machine in the 2.2 million population. Pag meron pong mga cases na kailangang i-refer sa West Bank, Egypt, or even sa Jerusalem, so the Palestinians or the Ministry of Health will ask for a permit from the Israeli. And that permit will take ages, sometimes 6 months, sometimes 1 year, sometimes yung pasyente patay na. So these are the situations even before the war. I was there since December 2021, and I experienced three escalation in the war. I was there last year, August, for the 3 days escalation, and May this year, 5-6 days of escalation. And then the war nangyari noong October 7. I was in Afghanistan when Taliban took over the whole country. And I thought that was the pinakagrabing digmaan that I experienced. But the situation is still different. In Taliban, it's in Afghanistan, sorry, Taliban is against the government soldiers. Dito, they're just bombing everywhere, everyone. So, and yeah, the capacity of the hospital, the bed capacity of the whole Gaza Strip is more than 3,450 to be exact, out of the 2.2 million population. Meron lang silang ICU beds na 35. And that's why during the COVID time, maraming namatay sa kanila. Because they cannot even refer them to Al-Shifa Hospital, for example, for yung mga pasyente na ngailangan ng respirators. During the war, actually early morning of October 7, 2 weeks before that, merong mga demonstrations near to the wall. So they are demanding that they will be Qatar is giving out money to the population, especially so sa mga pasyente na kailangan ng long-term hospitalization, mga amputees, for example. So at that time, na-withhold yung pagbigay nila ng money, ng support, and that's why they are demonstrating sa wall. That was 2 weeks before the war. And so, nung binigay nung Qatar yung mga demands, so they stopped the demonstrations. And that's early of October 7. Nagulat na lang kami at around 6 a.m., thousands, because then yung rockets talagang marinig mo. So nagising kami because of that sound, and then we're asking the different experts na nandun sa guest house namin na what's happening. And so we went out. You can actually see the trail ng mga rockets going out. So yeah, at that time, na-receive namin yung first casualty of patient around midday of that October 7 when the Israelis started to retaliate. The following day, Ministry of Health, I'm a medical coordinator. My responsibility is more on the liaising to the Ministry of Health, other INGOs, and to other health partners. So at that time, MOH already sent messages to INGOs asking for help. So on the 3rd day, we donated our emergency preparedness stock. And then they used that only for 3 days. Kasi nga sa dami ng influx ng mga wounded. A week after that, they are asking again for supplies, medicine. And so we donate MSF. The whole 3 sections in Gaza Strip donated the 9-month supply of medicines, medical supplies, and they only use it for more than a week. So ganon kadami yung intake ng mga pasyente sa may emergency room. We are supporting Indonesian hospital in the north and also allowed the hospital where they bombed 2 days ago. We're also supporting Al-Shifa Hospital kasi yung guest house namin is just few steps away, 50 meters away from the Al-Shifa Hospital. So we supported Shifa Hospital. We supported as well Al-Aqsa Hospital in Daril Bala, or if you are in Gaza, you will call it middle area. We supported European Gaza Hospital and Nasser, the south, the Khan Yunis, and also now we are supporting different primary healthcare centers. So as I said earlier, we moved 5 times from our guest house. On the second day, we bombed the mosque in front of our guest house. So the glasses, the doors is all shuttered. Maririnig mo at makifeel mo yung yanig ng impact. At some point, so during escalation, expats are not allowed to go to the hospital, to roam around the street, because all the parties to the conflict, they see expats during this crucial time as spies. So hindi kami pwedeng lumabas. And so it's our national colleagues to actually continue the work that we are doing. They are competent for sure, because at some point we want to nationalize the expert positions. Ganun sila ka-competent. And then after, nung time na sinabing hindi na safe ang guest house, so we moved to UNDP compound. Why UNDP compound? It's the only building in Gaza na merong underground bunker. So merong bunker sa ilalim. So we were there for 3 nights and 4 days until Israeli said that they wanted the people from Wadi Gaza, north of Wadi Gaza. It's the boundary between Gaza City and middle area up to the north. So we moved. Before this war, Israeli, they are doing roof knocking method, whereby magdadrop sila ng leaflet sa building. If they want to target this building, for example, they will drop leaflet, and then they will inform the occupants that they need to leave the building. It depends. Sometimes 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 1 hour, because they will bomb it. That's before this war. Or they will call someone in the building and then telling that person na spread the news in your building. In 10 minutes, 20, 30, 1 hour, we will bomb this building. That was before this war. But this war, there's no, wala nang sinasabi, basta bomba na lang ng bomba. So that's the difference. So we moved from UNDP to KYTC Community Training Center, as already said. There, when we left 4 days after, 25,000 na yung andon, and we went to Rafah. Yung nakikita niyong parking space, we stayed there for more than 2 weeks. At that time, pahirapan ng bumili ng food and water sa market. At some point, our drivers, we are sending them to the market, and then merong strike malapit sa kanila. So if not because of them, probably we are dead. Kasi bawal man sa amin ang pumunta sa market to buy our stuff. So yeah, after that, the organization managed to find a guest house in the Al-Mawasi area, that in Khan Yunis. It's near the beach, which is all the parties to the conflict, they designated this as the humanitarian zone. So they agreed na hindi nila bobombahin tong space na to. So all the UN agencies, ICRC, MSF, and other INGOs were there. So we stayed there under such time na na-release yung names namin 1st of November, and na-pick up ng local media that there are 2 Filipinos na andoon, and we managed to move out of Gaza. As of today, more than 14,000 deaths already, 33,000 injuries, 1.2 million Gazans were displaced from the north going to the south. 1 in 20 minutes, 1 children in every 20 minutes are killed, and that most of the marami pang mga taong nakalibing sa mga buildings na gumuho. So they're still in the rubble. They cannot take them out because mano-mano ang pag-alis ng mga bangkay. Wala man silang mga heavy equipments to do it. As of yesterday, 47 out of 75 primary healthcare centers are totally damaged. 35 out of 46 hospitals are not operational anymore. 2 days ago, when Libam allowed the hospital, it's the hospital in the north that MSF is supporting. One floor, hindi na siya functional, so we moved to the other floors. But still, the national staff are still there. They're still working, and yeah, it's actually frustrating. Now we are far away. We cannot do anything. As of 2 days ago, we lost already one lab technician, one previous driver, 2 doctors, and many are still wounded. Karamihan sa mga staff namin and most of the people of Gaza, they already lost tens and tens of their immediate family members. Marami sa kanila na mamatay. You can see news feeds, mga bata na walan ng mga magulang. That's happening now in Gaza. They said that there would be 4 days of a ceasefire, but according to the staff in Gaza, an hour ago na baka hindi matuloy. So again, ang panawagan ng MSF and I think all INGOs, first ceasefire. Ito yung kailangan for Gaza to recover, I would say. Ceasefire and conditional ceasefire. Increased entrance of humanitarian aid. Yung mga tao doon, maliban sa namamatay because of bombs, they can also die because of hunger, because of dehydration. Wala nang mabiling food and water sa market sa Gaza Strip, even in the south. Meron lang sila vegetables and fruit. And so we are advocating, we are shouting to the world that there should be increased entrance of humanitarian aid, food, water, medicine especially, and also fuel. And then that the Israelis should stop bombings of the hospitals, ambulances, churches, and to protect medical staff. Yeah, if you will ask me, babalik ba ako ng Gaza? I would say yes. Yeah. Gazans, Palestinians in general, not because the 4 of them are here, but 2 years that I was there, I've known them. They are family, even though my body is here, but my spirit and my heart remain in Gaza. So, yeah. Hindi ka ba natakot sa sarili mo? Well, that's the pledge I did 10 years ago when we experienced Typhoon Yolanda. So that's a pledge I made with myself that wherever my expertise or wherever I'm needed, I'll go. And this time, Gaza. So yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sir Darwin and Sir Reggie, for really having the courage today to share those experiences. Mabigat man pakinggan, pero that's the reality that is happening right now in Gaza, the genocide. And we are also fortunate enough to have our brothers from Gaza. And I would like to introduce Brother Ayman Abu Hania to also share his experiences together with his brothers of what is happening right now in Gaza.
Test 1, 2, 3. I'm not used to being on a microphone. Mabuhay. And magandang hapon. I guess that's how it's said. Excuse my Tagalog. I do speak Tagalog. My mom is Filipina and my dad is Palestinian. So that's how I came about to learn Tagalog. But I'm guessing I'm more comfortable speaking in English. So if it's not an issue with everyone. So yeah, mabuhay and salaam alaikum in Arabic. So my name is Ayman Abu Haniya. I just came out of Gaza. My brothers and I, including the rest of my family, with the assistance of the Philippine Embassy, we've managed to make it out safely after having experienced 35, almost 36 days of being in a war zone. Now, many have asked, like, what's it like to be in such situation? On the morning of October the 7th, during that day, it was a peaceful morning. And then that's where our life turned into makluba. Makluba is basically upside down in Arabic. It is something that we did not expect that we would be going through. And so on that morning, we usually do hear rockets and missiles being fired out of Gaza, and they're usually just test rockets. So on the morning of October 7th, I remember hearing one, two missiles being fired, and then only to realize there's a whole bunch of other ones going after. And it is only then that we realized in the morning that there is so much, this is much bigger than what we have experienced before. At the start of the event, around 5 hours after the beginning on October 7th, I believe the first or the second airstrike that the Israelis have fired was about 20 to 30 meters away from our home. It is also in the pictures in here. I will point it out as it's scrolling through. This view is actually from our home, the one that you've just seen right now. And so it was a horrific event to start with. And the first week we have experienced, I would say, one of the deadliest week to begin with. And this was just the beginning of that week. The first week we spent our time during the day, we would stay in our home, and at night time we would go to the ground floor as it was unsafe to stay in our home, and this was due to pieces flying off that could go through the window and could hit us or kill us. So we would go on the ground floor. So in case that we feel that we are unsafe, so it'd be a lot easier for us to run away from our home. So I do remember on the night of October the 8th, October the 9th, October the 10th, during those nights, I think I faced death personally. It was in that moment that with every missile, we would really feel like this is it, like this is my turn, this is it. We're about to leave this world, and nobody's gonna know. Yeah, so we would spend a good 5 to 8 hours on the ground floor, and almost every 2 to 3 minutes, we would hear the bombs, and the sounds were unlike anything we've ever experienced before. Every 2 minutes we would hear the sound. It's still in my head till now. And then a minute later and a minute later. And because we were so isolated in there, we didn't have internet connection, we didn't have electricity. And so what happened is all the bombings that were falling, they were nearby us. They were actually in our neighborhood. But because of the sound, it almost felt like everything was falling on our heads. It was during those times that we realized, are we dead? Are we alive? Like, even though we were alive, our bodies were alive, but spiritually within us, it felt like we have already died. And it was a terrifying feeling. Um, and so sleep was not part of the equation for every single day that we've experienced this war. Um, and so we had to split up in our family, and we coordinated within the family that we will take on two shifts. So one that would guard through the night and one that would guard during the day. So just in case anything happens, one could wake up the other ones in case that we need to evacuate. And so this brings us to on October 13th. It was at 3 a.m. that the guard in the building came up to us and mentioned in really terrifying news to us. And he came knocking on our door and he said, "You need to evacuate your home right now." So we woke up and we thought, "Oh, you must be kidding me. What do you mean evacuation?" He said, "Well, we got preliminary information that we need to evacuate the whole entire Gaza Strip and head to the southern of the Wadi Gaza, which is the valley." And so we didn't believe that until 6 a.m. That's when we saw a long convoy of UN, UN cars, RC, all of the international aid, including you guys. I remember seeing your cars leaving. And so it is at that moment that we realized that this is actually much more serious than we realized, and it was not a joke. And since we didn't have much time to leave, so we figured, okay, we're gonna stick around in our homes and see what we could do. And where do we go south? We had nowhere to go. All we knew is we had to pack up and leave. So I just put whatever things I could stash in my backpack. And this goes for every person within my family. We left everything else. It was just the essentials. Made sure we took our IDs, took my mom's medicine. It was just all essentials, all the necessities that we need. And obviously we didn't forget about our cat and the litter box. Oh gosh, it was a mission just dealing with the cat. And so the toughest part of having to head south was actually finding a car, because now that everyone in Gaza, there were over 1 million people that needed to leave Gaza within a 24-hour period. Some of them have walked on foot, some of them carried their babies, some of them carried their mattresses, their pillows, whatever it is they could gather, and they just started heading south. And so for my family, we were about 8 people, and including our cat. And so for us, we figured we needed to find a car, and it took us almost 12 hours to try and find a car, and we paid almost 15 times what a normal price is. And it was the creative idea of my other brother who didn't join us today, Amir. He said, "Hey, I got an idea. Why don't we just pull a bill and just wave it on the street? Hopefully somebody's gonna stop, just took out a 200 shekel bill, the highest bill, it's about $70. And I'm like, yeah, sure. Smart idea. Why not? Let's try it out. Because we were trying to get to the south before sunset. You don't want to be outside when it's nighttime in Gaza. You really don't want to be outside. So it's scary times. And took about half an hour of waving, and then my brother managed to stop a car, and we took the car and we head south. But also during that time, I've had the opportunity, including my other two brothers, to meet with the people that were fleeing their homes from the northern Gaza towards the south, since we live along the main road. So a lot of those people were carrying their babies, and they've been walking for 4 and 5 hours because they had no money to even find a car if they do. And so we figured that the building where we lived, it's gonna be bombed anyways. And so there was 1,000 liter of fresh water in the back of the building. And so my other brother, Ister, figured, hey, why don't we just hand this out to all these people? You know, if they're thirsty, it's hot outside, and this place, is gonna be bombed anyways. So let's distribute the water while we can get a car. And I'm like, yeah, sure, that's a great idea. So he started going out to all the people, and he started telling them, hey, do you have any bottles of waters or bottles of empty bottles of water on you? And so we're like, oh yeah, we're so thirsty. He's like, okay, come on in, come on in. And some of them, wanted to wash their face, they were sweaty. Some of them wanted to change a diaper for their kids. So we're like, yeah, just come on in. And we were the only ones left in our building. The management left first. They all had their vehicles. All the other residents had their vehicles. We were the only ones that didn't have one. So we're like, okay, we're screwed, but we'll figure it out. It's okay, as long as I got my brothers with me. And so we've emptied all the water tank, and we've handed it out to the people. And because they still had another 2 to 3 hours to go. And so I think it was important, like despite being in such situation, that we thought that it was important to try and help others as well. So we did. After we found the vehicle, our issue was, where do we go? So we were in the vehicle, and so it was a coordination, and the decisions that we took were either we die or live. And so at that time, I asked my brother, do you know anybody south? And so we started brainstorming and trying to put a list of who do we know there. And so it came about that one of the co-workers that worked with my other brother, Amir, has offered us to stay at their home because we said, do you know any UN schools nearby that we could go to? And she said, I wouldn't want you to go there, with your women. I mean, if you were only guys, I would have said, yeah, I would have suggested a place to go. But since that you have your mothers and your sisters with you, she actually offered her home to us. She was very kind to clean it up, prepare it, and she went and stayed with her parents. And she was kind enough to offer us her home for as long as we want. And I remember we arrived there around the evening time, and we were so hungry, and this was just another concern because we've left everything behind. And I was even telling my mom at the time, I'm like, Mom, did you grab the bags of pancit with you? We were craving pancit. And she said, it's okay. Huwag ka mag-alala, anak. Bibili na lang tayo ng spaghetti, and then just imagine you're eating pancit. I'm like, sure, yeah, that works. and so, and so the lady was actually very hospitable, and she made food for us. She made a really big dinner for us. We couldn't have pancit, but she made some good Arabic food, and that was the third time within a week that I actually fell asleep after for 8 hours. I fell asleep for 8 hours. That was the night I said, it's been a rough week, and hoping this will end soon. But regardless of what's gonna happen, I'm just gonna sleep it off. If I die, be it. It was at that moment that we realized like death was just part of the journey. So it could happen anytime. And during that time, we've also been in touch with the Philippine Embassy in Amman, Jordan, um, who have actually have gone above and beyond in staying in touch with us. They were in constant communication, checking on us every other day, if we were okay, if we were missing anything. And while they were working on preparing the paperwork, so that they could repatriate us back to the Philippines. And it was the following day that the embassy has asked us to mobilize towards the Rafah border. And so we did. We went to the Rafah border, and that on its own was another mission of trying to find a car again to get to the border. And so it took us around 3 hours just to try to find the car, and we paid this time almost 20x the normal price. Um, and we were running low on money. Like we had what we had. We couldn't go to the bank, withdraw. We couldn't do anything. We couldn't be out. So we figured, okay, we would go ahead and head to the border, and only to realize that the border was closed, shut. And that's when we realized we had to find another shelter. And so we spent the next 3 weeks in Rafah city at somebody else's home as well. Excuse me, guys. I know I'm running out of time. If you could just give me a minute and I'll try to wrap it up. It's a lot of events to unfold, and I couldn't just put it in a few words for you. There's so much to say. There's so much to show you that I've even put in just a few of the photos. And so, just want to say that we have stayed in Rafah at this other Filipinos that are similar to us, half Filipino, half Palestinians. And they were also kind enough to offer us a room in their home until we've managed to leave Gaza. I just want to mention here that some of these photos, this was behind our home. A building was targeted. In here, we were doing groceries, and that airstrike happened while we were doing so. This was the view from the balcony of our homes. And this was the time when we went and got flour. I think that's where you guys were staying at. It got to a point where a lot of people were mobilizing towards there because they knew food was there. And so for us, we figured, okay, we need flour too. So we broke into the UN logistics and we've managed to get a couple of bags of flour. We want to live. I mean, we've got no other option. So yeah, much of our journey has been on survival mode, and I mean extreme survival. We had no gas for cooking, so we had to learn how to cook on fire. We had no fresh water, so we had to figure out how we're gonna secure that. We didn't have clean water, and we only flushed our toilet once a day. Um, so it's been really tough journey, but again, there's so much to say, and don't want to keep it for too long here. Just want to say thank you to the Philippine Embassy, to the Philippine government, and I also want to say thank you to the organizers of the event, including the professors and you doctors. For speaking about the truth of what has actually happened in Palestine. And I think you were well researched in showing the truth of leading up to the events of October 7th. Yeah, so salamat po. It's a pleasure being here with you guys. Yes.
Where are you now?
Okay, absolutely, absolutely. I'll absolutely. So, during the duration of our trip, the Philippine Embassy has secured our transportation from the Rafah border leading up to Cairo, where they were kind enough to book us in hotels and offer us food throughout the duration of the time while they were arranging all of the paperwork. arranging the paperwork for us to repatriate back to the Philippines. And it was at that moment that the during the time, sorry, my father was traveling and he was supposed to be back in Gaza within, excuse me. My father was traveling and he was supposed to be back in Gaza 2 days after the war has begun. And so he couldn't, so he spent much of his time in Jordan, and where he later also joined us in Egypt when we have left Gaza. And so the Philippine embassy has repatriated us to the Philippines. We flew back into the Philippines here. And we were promised that, you know, we will be well taken care of. But to be honest with you, I was disappointed. My family was disappointed. His family with 3 kids were disappointed. To us, it felt like many of the ones, the officials, you could say, were there just to come in for the pictures and not actually help us directly, because we were left at the airport with no place to go, nowhere to go, and no one to talk to. After all the cameras left, the people left with them. And we were left there scrambling. So what do? Where do we stay? Is there somebody else supposed to come and rescue us, take us somewhere, temporary shelter, a hotel, something? I mean, it's been 18 hours in flight. And so it was a family, a friend of us that worked at the airport, that his mom knows my mom, who was kind enough to ask us to go to their home. And we stayed there shortly. And then we're still, until now, we're trying to figure out what to do. We still have no shelter. We have nowhere to go. We're staying temporarily at this organization that we're kind enough, ISCAG, I believe it's called, ISCAG. It's in Cavite. And so we live right on top of a medical clinic. So we said it's okay, you know, we'll stay here temporarily until we get things figured out. I mean, you notice I'm really not wearing so nice clothes. This is what escaped with. I only have 2 clothes and my chinelas and Tagalog. And so yeah, the other thing that I want to point out is during the time that we were in Egypt, the Philippine embassy did not actually bring the entire family here. I do still have my father, my stepmother, and my 2 sisters, which are of Palestinian origin. And they do have Palestinian passports, but we're all one family living under one roof. So having to discriminate that and having to separate our family was a really tough decision for us. And we were told in Egypt that, hey, you either get on this flight or, you know, you could just stay behind with your family. And so I do urge the people of the Philippines, I do urge the Filipino government, embassy, DFW, and all these organizations to try to help bring my father, my stepmom, and my sisters and reunite with us here in the Philippines, because they are staying in Egypt. You know, they have nowhere to go and they're running low on money and they will be on the street soon. And so we would really appreciate any help that would bring my family and unite us all together here in the Philippines, where we're starting our new life. Thank you so much. Excuse me? Yes, so just a brief intro of me. I forgot to mention that I have studied civil engineering. I have studied civil engineering in Canada. That explains why I do speak English. And I have been visiting my family frequently every other year. But this past 2 years, I decided that I can no longer spend my time alone abroad. And so I wanted to reunite with my family, and we figured Gaza would be the best place to be since this is where our family business is. But little did I know that I was there and this was gonna happen. Little did I know that my life, my family's life was at risk. But in a way, I was glad that I was there. I was happy that I was there. Even during these difficult times, I think if I wasn't there, I would have suffered a lot more. Probably would have not slept thinking, is my family okay or not? And so to me, I did not regret any decision to go back into Gaza and be united with my family. And as a matter of fact, since 2019, I've been wanting to leave Canada and come to the Philippines and establish a life here. It's because dito ako po pinanganak. I guess that's how you say it. I was born here. And so I wanted to reunite with my roots. But little did I know that this would be the way that I would make it back to the Philippines. And I'm glad, I've had the opportunity to do and come here and not by myself, but with my family. And hopefully the rest of my family can join us here. We're a huge family. So I do hope I could bring all of them here. We'll all be reunited. And we do have a plan to establish a restaurant here because that's what we love to do. I'm an engineer, but I love cooking. So I make good food. So good food, you like it. That's about it really for me. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to throw it at me and I'd be more than happy to answer it. Other than that, thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Sir Ayman, for sharing your experience. We truly are fortunate to have you here, and we are praying for the safety of your fellow Palestinians. Continuing on with the program, I would like to introduce the reactors. The All UP Academic Employees Union Manila President, Mr. Reginald Vallejos. The All UP Workers Union Manila Vice President, Benjamin De Lara Santos Jr., and UP Manila University Student Councilor, Kyla Sofia Benedicta.
Ayan, isang packet ba ako? Talagang makita. Sige. Isang magandang hapon sa ating lahat. Siyempre, pagpupugay po sa lahat ng mga nagsalita ngayong hapon. Kay Prof. Sara Raimundo, sa dalawang doktor natin sa Gaza. Kay Sir, no, na napakahusay ng pagkikwento. Sa bahagi, sabi kanina, no, ano yung i-react natin dito sa forum na ito, no? Binanggit kanina, no, na katulad ng ating mga kapatid na Palestino, halos magkapareho yung ating kasaysayan. Tayo ay kinolonya, nakaranas tayo ng colonization ng Spain, ng US, no? Sila naman, no, ay pilit na sinasako, no, ng Israel, no? Katulong ang Estados Unidos. Binabanggit din kanina na katulad din ng ating mga katutubo na silang mamamayang Pilipino, meron din silang paglaban, no, para sa national self-determination, no, at kalayaan. No? So, tuloy-tuloy yung ginagawang panggigera sa kanila, no, ng Israel. No? At syempre, napakahalaga din yung pinapakita natin pakikiisa at solidarity sa mga kapatid nating mga Palestino. At sana ay magtuloy-tuloy yung ating pagkilos para sa kanila. No? So sa bahagi ng All UP Academic Employees Union, no, mga guro, mga research extension at professionals na asahan niyo po no, yung aming tuloy-tuloy na pagsuporta sa laban ng ating mga kapatid na Palestino. At tuloy-tuloy lang po, no, makakaasa po kayo no, na simula ngayon hanggang sa mga susunod na panahon, no, yung aming pakikita, yung aming paglaban para magkaroon ng katarungan no, at kapayapaan sa Palestinians ay sa Palestine no, ay kaisa ang mga guro at kawani ng ating pamantasan. Maraming salamat, mabuhay po.
Magandang hapon po sa ating lahat. Isang nakakabahalang hapon para sa ating mga kapatid na Palestine at sa ating mga kapwa Pilipino. Bilang isang unionista at bilang isang manggagawang pakalusugan, sagrado po sa atin ang buhay. At siyempre, ang buhay ng ating mga kasamang health workers na kasama na sa usapin ng collateral damage pala ngayon. Mula po sa ating mga manggagawang pakalusugan ay nakita po namin na nakakabahala ang nangyayari sa Palestine sa ngayon at pwedeng mangyari din sa ating sa Pilipinas. Sa usapin ng mga retaging at sa usapin ng pagtingin bilang mga terorista. At bilang panghuli, siguro kailangan hindi lamang natin na panoorin sa TV yung mga bumabagsak na building. Dapat damdamin natin kung ilang tao ang nasa loob noon at kung ilang taong namamatay. Kaya para sa atin sa mga manggagawang pakalusugan, kinokondena natin ang digmaang gawa ng Israel na back ng US. Maraming salamat.
Ayan, muli po magandang hapon po sa lahat. Mula po sa UP Manila University Student Council at syempre kasama namin yung mga mag-aaral ng UP Manila. Pinapahayag din po namin no, yung pagkondena talaga no, sa ginagawa ng Israel sa Palestine sa kasalukuyan. Gusto ko lang po simulan yung mensahe ko no, sa point out doon sa kahalagahan din talaga nung pagtalakay kung paano unti-unti na sinisira rin ng Israel yung kultura ng mga Palestino. Kasi aside no, sa mga buildings, sa mga mosques, sa mga schools, sa hospitals, ano pa ba, sa mga bahay sa Palestine, ang sinisira rin nila yung mga tao, syempre, pati yung kultura no, ng Palestine. At sa matagal no, na kasaysayan ng kolonyalismo na nararanasan din ng mga Palestino sa kasalukuyan, laging kawawa, sabi nga kanina, yung threatened to be forgotten, yung kultura ng mga sinasakop. No? At very relatable ito para sa ating mga Pilipino, di ba? Kasi we have been there, no? 333 years tayong nasa ilalim no, ng mga Spanish, tapos dumating yung mga Amerikano, yung mga Hapones, tapos ngayon nasa ilalim pa rin tayo ng Estados Unidos, yung United States. Sabi nga, when you kill the people, you also kill their culture. Nangyayari sa Gaza, sa Palestine, ay totoong ethnocide talaga at makakonsider no, na war crime talaga against humanity. So, bilang ako po, arts and culture student dito sa UP Manila, sobrang halaga po nito no, para sa akin na talaga na aside no sa kaligtasan no, ng mga Palestino, kailangan din talagang i-preserve yung kanilang kultura. No? At isa rin po na gusto kong i-point out na dahil ganito nga po yung nangyayari, no, very familiar ito at relatable sa mga Pilipino kasi ganito rin yung nararanasan ng mga indigenous peoples no, sa ating bansa, ganito rin yung nararanasan ng mga magsasaka sa Negros no, na nakaranas rin ng pagbobomba, ng tagutom no, sa kasalukuyan. Tapos hanggang ngayon, ganito pa rin yung nararanasan sa Mindanao, kung saan napakalakas po no, ng militarisasyon talaga. Kaya tayo no, bilang mga Pilipino, gusto ko lang i-quote yung kaka-release lang kahapon din po na statement ng UP Diliman University Council na intellectuals and academics can never be neutral or silent. They should have a more principled stand that enables them in effect to speak the truth to power. At isang point din po na kailangan natin matandaan no, bilang mga intellectual man, health workers, o kaya future health workers, mga estudyante, kahit mga Pilipino bilang isang tao na ngayon sa nangyayaring paglaban nga sa buong mundo, kailangan natin i-maintain, i-expand, tapos i-strengthen yung momentum of resistance na nangyayari sa buong mundo ngayon. At tayo sa Pilipinas, meron din pangangailangan talaga na mas paingayin yung nangyayari din na katulad ng nabanggit yung lampas 50 years na nangyayari na civil war sa bansa natin. At kailangan din natin na lumaban para mas i-publicize pa sa buong mundo yung parehong nararanasan natin dito sa Pilipino para makuha rin natin yung suporta no, sa mga iba't iba pang bansa. Dahil ngayon nga, nasa ilalim pa rin tayo ng US, tapos sa mga mag-aaral, sobrang importante sa atin at kailangan makialam tayo sa ngayon nga yung threat na ibalik yung mandatory ROTC. Tapos, moving forward, gusto ko lang din po ito ng mga estudyante, ng mga kabataan sa UP Manila na una po, kung taga-UP Manila po kayo, merong binuo po na group chat yung League of Filipino Students UP Manila. So, yung LFS po ay Anti-Imperialist Youth Organization sa Pilipinas at mayroong chapter po sa UP Manila. At bumuo po kami ng Student Stand for Justice for Palestine, UP Manila. Meron po itong group chat. At kung siyempre yung mga UP Manila students na nandito po, hinihikayat po namin kayo no, na sumali dito sa GC na to para ma-coordinated tayo sa mga activities na ilulunsad para ipahayag no, yung ating pagsuporta sa Palestine. Tapos, meron din po kaming mga activities in the future na mga study circles, mga educational discussions no, na gusto rin po talaga namin ipaabot talaga sa mga estudyante. Tapos, sa November 25 din po, iimbitahan namin kayo no, sa gagawing March for Justice in Palestine sa Luneta, na magsisimula sa Luneta, tapos maglalakad no, papuntang Cultural Center of the Philippines. So, meron naman pong pinapost yung IRPS dito, kung tama po, na publicity material patungkol dito. So, hinihikayat po namin no, yung lahat na pumunta dito. Tapos, ayun, bilang pagtatapos, gusto ko lang pong basahin yung isang part ng unity statement po na ni-release no, ng UPM Kilos na, yung sectoral alliance po ng tatlong nandito ng mga organizations. So, basahin ko lang po. We stand by this po. We condemn the United States' utilization of its war machine against small yet resource-rich countries to give way for the exploitation of natural resources, new markets for its surplus products, cheap labor, and military bases, such as what is happening in Palestine or in her own country, the Philippines. We raise our fist for all Palestinians and Filipinos who continue to struggle for peace and national liberation. We call on all nationalist students, academics, and healthcare workers to express our solidarity with the Palestinians. Resistance in all forms is just, especially in the face of apartheid and genocide. Long live international solidarity.
Thank you so much to our dear reactors. And together with the Filipino people, as part of the Philippine Medical Students Association, we, the medical students, are in solidarity also in supporting, in condemning this genocide together with the Philippine Nursing Students Association and all the Filipino youth. At this portion, alam natin na hindi ito magiging makabuluhan without recognizing our dear speakers. So let me share this to everybody, the certificate of appreciation given to Professor Sara Raimundo for her special contribution as the research speaker during Hospitals Anniversary Understanding Israel-Palestine War, given this 23rd of November 2022 at University of the Philippines College of Medicine, Manila City, signed by Dr. Karen Garcia, the chairperson of the Department of Family and Community Medicine, UP College of Medicine, Philippine General Hospital, Ms. Karen May Esporillo, the President of all UP Workers Union Manila PGH, Professor Reginald Vallejos, the President of all UP Academic Employees Union, and Dr. Adelina De La Paz, the President of Philippines-Palestine Friendship Association. Again, let us give a hand to Professor Sara Raimundo.
Picture. Paano ito patayin?
Again, once again, thank you so much, Professor Sara. Now, let us have Sir Darwin de la Cruz Diaz for also this certificate of appreciation for his special contribution and the sharing of testimonies during the hospitals under siege, understanding Israel-Palestine war. And of course, we also have Mr. Regidor Esguerra, once again, for his special contribution and the sharing of testimonies during our today's forum. We would also like to acknowledge our media partners for today's forum, Mr. Johnson Manabat from ABS-CBN and Mr. Jake Montegando from Philippine Daily Inquirer. Once again, let us give our speakers a hand for sharing their time and knowledge to our today's forum. So before we proceed, we will just be raising a question. I'm a Muslim. I'm a faculty of the University of the Philippines College of Medicine. My name is Dr. Abdel Jafri Atuba. I give my hat, huge respect for Reggie here and Darwin for your service to the people of Gaza. You've been there, you've worked in several hospitals in Gaza. My only question is, because the topic is hospital and the sick, can you now can you tell us now the lies of Israel that the hospitals in Gaza are the basis of the Hamas militants? Can you, because I want unfortunately, there are still quite a number of Filipinos who still side with Israel despite the genocide that Israel is doing to the people of Gaza. Can you now belie these claims that the hospitals in Gaza are the basis of the Hamas militants? You've worked there, Mr. Reggie and Mr. Darwin. Can you just tell the whole nation that if Israel is really telling lies about the Hamas militants in Gaza? Thank you.
Salamat po sa tanong. Indeed, I worked there for almost 2 years. And the mandate of MSF is to see to it that the medical activities are nagagawan po at na-meet yung need ng mga pasyente, limb reconstructive surgery, because of the Great March of Return in May 2018 up to December 2019. We have also burn unit in Al-Shifa Hospital and also Nasser Hospital. We are also supporting ER capacity building activities of Indonesian Hospital in the north and also outside Tun Primary Healthcare Center, level 4 in Gaza City. With regards po sa base, for us, in my experience, wala po akong nakita. We are only relying on the fact that I'm the medical coordinator and that my only concern is the health of the population. I hope I answered the question.
Thank you so much. Sorry to cut that, but as much as we wanted to raise many questions right now, we are having time constraints. So at this portion, to show more of our support to the Palestinian resistance and struggles as we condemn the genocide that is happening right now in Gaza, we will be having a photo opportunity, and we have distributed some printed calls that we can use for our photo op. I think we can just compress a little bit so para makapwesto po yung photographer dito po sa harap. Pwede po siguro tayo tayong lahat. Hawak-hawak ang ating mga panawagan. Ang ating mga panawagan, stop the bombing, stop bombing hospitals and the occupation, stop the genocide, free Palestine, stand with Palestine. Free Palestine! Free! Free! Palestine! Netanyahu! Free Palestine! Stop the bombing! Stop bombing hospitals! Free Palestine! Free Palestine! To formally close our event, I am calling, let me call on Dr. Okay, can we just settle a little bit before we formally close our program? Alright? Upo muna tayong lahat po. This will be just a few minutes lang po para masaraduhan natin ang ating forum.
So just go lang. Tawagin mo na yung closing remarks. Tatagal tayo eh.
Okay, to deliver our closing remarks, let me call on Dr. Karen Garcia, the chairperson of the Department of Family and Community Medicine at UPPG.
Magandang hapon sa lahat. First and foremost, congratulations for this successful forum. This forum has indeed gave us a deeper understanding of the war and its effect on the people and the healthcare community, the medical staff, and the hospitals. Thank you to Professor Sarah Raimundo for providing the historical and socio-cultural roots of the war. To our MSF speakers, our nurses, Mr. Darwin and Mr. Raydor. I personally couldn't imagine the fear, the anxiety, the uncertainty of your experience. I really have no words when I was listening to the both of you. And there was really frustration, there was anger, there was sadness. Pero despite that, mabuhay po kayo, kayo po ay mga tunay na bayani. To our Palestinian brothers, thank you for sharing your experience as well. We are with you in your desire to be with your family. And on behalf of the Department of Family and Community Medicine, thank you for the invitation. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to help us organize in a very simple way this very significant and relevant forum. Maraming salamat po sa lahat.
Thank you, Dr. Karin, for your closing remarks. Without further ado, after hearing the horrors of the war in Gaza, we are inviting you to join us in our candle lighting program in front of the UPCM gate next to Robinson's along Pedro Hill Street. Together, let's raise our cause to end the genocide in Palestine. Let us go downstairs, take a candle, and light it in solidarity